The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass orbiting the planet Velmara. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were nothing more than clouds of gas held together by energy fields. They had gathered here for 300 years to keep peace in the galaxy. Commander Hyen stood quietly in the human observation area. His dark uniform bore no decorations, just a simple patch showing Earth's blue surface. He watched the council members argue about trade routes and mineral rights. These discussions bored him, but his job required attendance. Next to him sat Ambassador Ra, a sharp-eyed woman who took notes on her datapad. She had represented humanity for 5 years now and had earned respect from some council members. Though not all. The chamber fell silent when War Master Krell entered. He was a Draxian, standing nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. His species had conquered 12 systems before joining the council. They still maintained the largest military fleet in known space. Krell walked to the center platform where speakers addressed the assembly. "I bring a simple request," Krell announced, his voice echoing through translation devices. "The human colonies in the Outer Rim interfere with Draxian expansion. We ask that humans surrender these territories for the greater good of galactic harmony." Ambassador Ra stood immediately. Her small frame seemed tiny compared to the massive alien, but her voice carried clearly. "The Outer Rim colonies are legally established under council law. We have settlements there dating back 80 years. Families live on those worlds. We will not abandon them." Krell's 4 eyes focused on her. A sound came from his throat that the translators identified as laughter. "Families? Humans have been traveling space for only 3 centuries. You are children playing with toys you barely understand. The Draxian Empire has ruled the stars for 10,000 years. These colonies belong to us by right of superior strength." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some species shifted uncomfortably. Others watched with interest. Counselor Vexler, an insectoid being with multiple segments, clicked his mandibles in what appeared to be agreement. "The human species contributes little to galactic civilization," Vexler said. "They excel at trade and basic manufacturing but lack true power. Perhaps compromise serves everyone best. Surely humans can relocate these few colonies to avoid conflict." Commander Hyen felt his jaw tighten. He had fought in the colony wars 30 years ago. He had seen what humans could do when pushed. But Ra had forbidden him from speaking unless directly addressed. She believed diplomacy could solve this problem. Ra addressed the council with calm precision. "We are a young species by your standards. This is true. But youth does not equal weakness. Council law protects all member species equally. If you allow the Draxians to violate this law, what prevents others from doing the same tomorrow?" Counselor Thal, a reptilian being with deep green scales, nodded slowly. He had always shown humans more respect than others. "The ambassador speaks wisdom. We cannot abandon principles when convenient." But the majority of the council seemed uninterested in human concerns. They took a vote on whether to intervene if conflict arose. The result was clear. 34 species voted for neutrality. Only 8 supported protection for human colonies. 5 abstained. Krell's laughter boomed again. "The council has spoken. Humans stand alone. You have 1 planetary cycle to evacuate your colonies. After that, the Draxian fleet will claim what belongs to us." Ambassador Ra stood firm. "We will not evacuate. Our people have rights under galactic law." "Then you choose war," Krell said. "A foolish decision for such a weak species. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. The Draxian Empire will sweep through your defenses like wind through grass. Perhaps this lesson will teach humans humility." Commander Hyen could not stay silent any longer. He rose from the seat, ignoring Ra's warning glance. "War Master Krell, you should study human history before making assumptions." The council chamber quieted. Few had heard the human commander speak before. Krell turned his massive head toward Hyen. "History? What history could a species of merchants and farmers possibly have that concerns warriors? Hyan's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were cold. In the last 500 years alone, humanity has fought 23 major wars on our homeworld. We have waged 847 smaller conflicts. We have civil wars, religious wars, territorial wars, and wars fought over ideas. We have destroyed entire cities and killed millions of our own kind. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet and came within seconds of using them multiple times. The chamber had gone completely silent now. Even Vexler had stopped clicking his mandables. Hyan continued. We are not a warrior culture like yours. We do not celebrate combat or seek glory in battle. But we have learned something over thousands of years of killing each other. We learned that when survival is at stake, nothing else matters. We learned that peace is precious because war is horrible. And we learned that sometimes the only way to stop a threat is to destroy it completely. Krell stared at the human for a long moment. Then he laughed again, louder than before. Big words from a small species. The Draxian Empire has never lost a war. We will see if humans fight as well as they talk. Ambassador Ra closed her datapad and stood. This council has failed in its duty. When Draxian ships attack our colonies, remember that you chose not to prevent this aggression. History will judge your decision. She and Commander Hyan left the chamber together. As they walked through the curved corridors back to their ship, neither spoke. They both knew what was coming. The Draxians would attack within days, not weeks. Krell was not the type to wait. On their shuttle back to Earth, Ra finally broke the silence. You should not have spoken. Now they think we are threatening them. Hyan looked out the window at the stars streaming past. I was not threatening them. I was warning them. There is a difference. Will it make any difference? Ra asked quietly. No, Hyan admitted. They will attack. They see us as weak because we prefer trade to war. They do not understand that we prefer peace because we know the cost of war. But they will learn. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected the Draxian fleet departing their home system. 500 warships set course for human space. War Master Krell had broadcast a message declaring the Outer Rim colonies would be claimed by force on Earth. Admiral Tay received the news in his office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He had been expecting this call. He looked at the blue water below and thought about all the battles humans had fought on that ocean over the centuries. Then he activated the emergency protocols that would change everything. The Galactic Council watched through their sensors as the Draxian fleet approached human space. Most expected a quick victory. A few wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. None of them truly understood what they had done by allowing this war to begin. Commander Hyan had tried to warn them. Humans were not warriors by nature. But when threatened with extinction, they became something far more dangerous. They became survivors who would do absolutely anything to ensure their species continued to exist. The Draxians were about to learn this lesson. And the galaxy would never forget what happened next. The lunar base had been home to 50,000 people. Scientists, miners, their families, and support staff lived in the underground tunnels carved beneath the gray dust. Dr. Wu had worked there for 12 years, studying asteroid composition. He had a wife and 2 daughters in the residential sector. That morning, he had kissed them goodbye before heading to his laboratory. Now, alarms screamed through the tunnels. Red lights flashed everywhere. Dr. Wu ran with hundreds of others toward the emergency shelters deeper underground. Behind them, explosions shook the rock walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. A woman next to him stumbled and he helped her up. They kept running. The Draxian fleet had arrived without warning. Their first attack targeted Luna's defensive platforms, destroying them in minutes. Then they fired on the colony domes on the surface. Atmosphere vented into space, killing thousands instantly. Dr. Wu did not know if his family had reached safety. Communication networks were down. All he could do was run and hope. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Tay watched the tactical display on his command ship's bridge. His fleet consisted of 87 warships, mostly cruisers and destroyers built for system defense. The Draxians had 500 ships, many of them massive dreadnoughts 3 times larger than anything humanity possessed. The mathematics were simple and brutal. "Enemy fleet approaching Mars orbit," his tactical officer reported. "They are spreading out to surround the planet." Admiral Tay had gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had commanded ships for 40 years. He knew when a battle could not be won through conventional means. "Send the signal." "Execute Protocol Red." Throughout human space, the signal activated systems that had been prepared for years but never used. Every military installation went to maximum alert. Reserve forces mobilized. And something else happened that surprised even Admiral Tay's own officers. Civilian ships began changing course toward Earth, merchant vessels that carried cargo between the colonies, mining ships that processed asteroids, even luxury liners that transported tourists. They all turned back, responding to an old agreement made decades ago. Every ship capable of mounting a weapon would be refitted for war. Every civilian with military training would be recalled to service. Captain Bio commanded the frigate Incheon, one of the smaller ships in Tay's fleet. She was 32 years old and had never fired her weapons in actual combat. Today that would change. Her tactical screen showed 3 Draxian destroyers moving to cut off the civilian evacuation ships fleeing Luna. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Plot intercept course." Her executive officer looked uncertain. "Captain, those destroyers outgun us significantly. We should wait for support." "Those evacuation ships carry 50,000 civilians," Captain Bio said quietly. "We are not waiting." The Incheon accelerated toward the Draxian ships at maximum thrust. Captain Bo's hands were steady on her command console even as her heart pounded. She watched the distance close. 3 kilometers. 2 kilometers. 1 kilometer. Fire all missiles. Target their sensor arrays. The Incheon's entire payload of 12 missiles streaked toward the lead destroyer. The Draxian ship's point defense system shot down 8 of them. 4 got through, exploding against its forward hull. The destroyer did not stop, but it slowed momentarily as systems recalibrated. That moment was enough. The evacuation ships changed course, accelerating away from the battle. Captain Bio smiled grimly. Then the Draxian destroyers returned fire. The first impact tore through the Incheon's port side. The second hit the engine room. The third breached the command deck. Captain Bio felt the ship dying around her. Emergency systems failed. Artificial gravity cut out. In her last conscious moments, she saw the evacuation ships escape on her tactical display. 50,000 lives saved. She closed her eyes. On Mars, General Key commanded the ground forces defending the colony cities. The red planet housed 2 million people in dome habitats scattered across the surface. Orbital bombardment had already destroyed 3 of the smaller settlements. Now Draxian landing craft descended toward the capital city of New Sol. General Key was 55 years old and had fought in 2 previous conflicts. He knew defensive warfare. The Martian surface offered few advantages, but his people had prepared the ground well. Hidden weapons emplacements, underground tunnel networks, supply caches buried in the red sand. "Let them land," he ordered his commanders. "Draw them away from the cities. Make them hunt us in the canyons where their numbers mean less." The first wave of Draxian troops hit the surface, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they found a prepared enemy that knew the terrain. Human soldiers attacked from hidden positions, then disappeared into tunnels before the aliens could respond. Automated gun turrets activated when Draxian troops passed by, then self-destructed before they could be captured. War Master Krell watched the battle reports from his flagship with growing irritation. He had expected the human fleet to scatter immediately. Instead, they fought like cornered animals. Every human ship seemed willing to sacrifice itself if it meant damaging a Draxian vessel. And on Mars, his ground forces advanced slowly, losing soldiers to ambush and traps. "These humans fight without honor," complained one of his sub-commanders. "They hide and strike from shadows. They do not face us in open battle." Krell's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then we will burn them out. Order the bombardment of New Sol." If they will not surrender, we will show them the price of resistance. But before the order could be executed, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships emerging from the outer system. Not military vessels, but converted civilian craft. Hundreds of them, each one bristling with improvised weapons. Merchant ships with missile pods welded to their hulls. Mining vessels mounting industrial lasers. Even passenger liners equipped with kinetic cannons. Admiral Tay watched the reinforcements arrive and felt something he had not expected. Hope. All ships, form up. We make our stand here. The battle for Earth space lasted 18 hours. The Draxians had superior numbers and better technology, but the humans fought with desperate intensity. Every ship that was destroyed took at least one enemy vessel with it. Captains rammed their crippled ships into Draxian cruisers when they ran out of ammunition. Fighter pilots flew into the engines of enemy dreadnoughts, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their allies. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives watched the battle through long-range sensors. They had expected this conflict to end within hours. Instead, they witnessed something that disturbed them deeply. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make victory so costly that the Draxians would regret ever attacking. Counselor Vexler watched his display screen in growing unease. They are savages. Look at how they throw away their lives. But Counselor Thal saw something different. They are not throwing away their lives. They are spending them wisely. Every Draxian ship lost is one less ship that can threaten their homeworld. They are buying time for their civilians to evacuate. This is not savagery. This is sacrifice. On Luna, Dr. Wu finally reached the emergency shelter where his family had taken refuge. He held his wife and daughters close, all of them crying with relief. But through the shelter's communication system, they heard the sounds of battle continuing above. Explosions, energy weapons. Ships dying in the darkness of space. Dr. Wu had been a scientist his entire life. He had studied rocks and minerals, seeking to understand the universe through careful observation. He had never considered himself a warrior or even particularly brave. But holding his family in that shelter, listening to people die fighting to protect them, something changed inside him. I am recording everything, he told his wife, holding up his datapad. Someone needs to document this. Someone needs to remember what it cost. Admiral Tay's flagship took heavy damage as the battle entered its final phase. The Draxian fleet had been reduced by nearly a third, far more than they had anticipated. But the human fleet was in worse shape. Only 38 ships remained operational. The converted civilian vessels had taken the worst casualties. Their improvised armor no match for military-grade weapons. Admiral, we are receiving withdrawal orders from Earth Command, his communication officer reported. We are to fall back to inter-system defenses. Admiral Tay looked at his tactical display one last time. They had held for 18 hours. They had bloodied an enemy that thought humans would break easily. And most importantly, they had bought time for millions of civilians to reach safety. All ships begin withdrawal. Stay in formation. Make them pay for every kilometer they advance. As the surviving human ships retreated toward Earth, War Master Krell surveyed the damage to his fleet. He had lost 163 ships, nearly 20,000 Draxian warriors dead. And the humans still had not surrendered, for the first time since the invasion began. Krell felt something he had not experienced in many years. Doubt. These humans fought differently than any species he had encountered. They did not seek glory or honor. They simply refused to stop fighting no matter how many of them died. The invasion had just begun, but already it was not going according to plan. Analyst Yoon worked in a small office on the Galactic Council station. Her job involved monitoring conflicts throughout known space and preparing reports for the council members. She was human, one of only 3 on the station's permanent staff. Most days her work was boring, tracking minor disputes over trade agreements or territorial boundaries. Today was different. She watched the data streaming in from human space and felt her hands shake. The casualty numbers kept climbing. Luna Station had lost 30,000 people in the first day. Mars had lost another 15,000. The space battle had killed 12,000 more. And the war had only just started. What disturbed her more were the reports from Draxian sources that Council sensors had intercepted. The aliens had expected maybe 500 casualties total. They had planned for a 3-day campaign. Now they were entering week 2 and had lost over 30,000 warriors themselves. UN began compiling a report for the Council, but she knew she needed more information. She accessed the human database, something she rarely did. What she found there made her stop breathing for a moment. The database contained humanity's complete military history, wars dating back thousands of years. The documents detailed conflicts fought with swords and spears, then guns and cannons, then missiles and nuclear weapons. She read about wars that killed millions, cities destroyed, entire populations eliminated, technologies developed, specifically to kill other humans more efficiently. She found detailed analyses of human military doctrine. Concepts like total war, where entire economies converted to military production. Strategies like scorched earth, where armies destroyed everything as they retreated so enemies could not use the resources. Tactics like human wave attacks, where soldiers charged enemy positions. Knowing most would die, but some might break through, there were psychological profiles too. Studies about how humans responded to existential threats. Research showing that when humans believed their species or family was in danger, normal moral constraints disappeared. They became capable of anything necessary for survival. EUN sat back in her chair, staring at her screens. The Council thought humans were soft because they preferred peace and trade. They did not understand that humans preferred peace precisely because they knew what war truly meant. She began writing her report with shaking fingers. In the debris field where Luna Station had stood, Colonel Hay floated with her Marine unit. They wore armor designed for zero-gravity combat. Their mission was simple but dangerous. 3 Draxian cruisers had been damaged in the recent battle and were making repairs. Colonel Hay intended to capture them. "Remember your training," she told her team through the communication network. "Draxians are bigger and stronger, but they are not used to fighting inside ships. Use the corridors. Use the darkness. Make them afraid." The Marines moved silently through space, approaching the closest cruiser from its blind spot. They attached to the hull and began cutting through with plasma torches. Inside, the Draxian crew had no idea they were about to be boarded. Colonel Hay was the first through the breach. She moved quickly through the ship's corridors, her weapon firing in controlled bursts. Behind her, the Marines spread out in teams of 3. They had studied Draxian ship layouts for years. They knew where to go and what to target. The Draxians were shocked to find enemies inside their ship. They were even more shocked by how the humans fought. The Marines did not stand and exchange fire. They used ambush tactics, appearing from side passages and disappearing before the aliens could respond. They targeted life support systems and power conduits, turning the ship into a maze of darkness and failing air. Within 2 hours, Colonel Hay's team had secured the cruiser. The surviving Draxian crew surrendered in confusion. They had never experienced boarding actions before. In their culture, ships fought until they were destroyed. The idea of capturing an enemy vessel seemed strange and dishonorable, but Colonel Hay did not care about Draxian honor. She now had access to their computer systems, their weapons technology, and their communication networks. Intelligence that would save human lives. That was all that mattered. Commander Jin flew his fighter through the asteroid field near Mars, leading a squadron of 12 pilots. They were testing new tactics that Admiral Tay had approved. Tactics that made Jin uncomfortable but which he understood were necessary. Each fighter carried 6 drones, small unmanned craft packed with explosives. The drones had simple programming. Find enemy ship. Fly into enemy ship, explode. The pilots called them suicide drones, which seemed darkly appropriate. Target acquired, Jin reported, spotting a Draxian destroyer moving through the asteroids. Releasing drones? 72 drones launched from the squadron and accelerated toward the enemy ship. The Draxian point defense systems destroyed most of them. But not all. 15 drones impacted the destroyer's hull, exploding with enough force to breach its armor. The ship did not sink in space, but it went dark, all systems failing. Jin felt sick watching it happen. He had been trained to fight in honorable combat, pilot against pilot. This felt like cheating. But then he thought about Luna Station and the 30,000 people who had died there. He thought about his younger sister who lived on Mars. Honor seemed less important than keeping her alive. In the Galactic Council chamber, Counselor Zix listened to Analyst Yoon's report with growing concern. Zix was a Mytharian, a species that communicated through color changes in their crystalline bodies. They had been council members for 800 years and had never voted for war. You are saying humans have documented every conflict they ever fought? Zix asked, their colors shifting to show confusion. Yes, Counselor, Yoon confirmed. We study our wars carefully. We analyze what worked and what failed. We preserve the knowledge because we believe that understanding our violent past helps us avoid repeating it. But it also means we know exactly how to fight when we must. Counselor Vexler clicked his mandibles dismissively. Knowledge of ancient battles with primitive weapons means nothing against modern warfare. That is not correct, Yoon said quietly. The weapons change, but the principles remain the same. How to break an enemy's will to fight. How to use terrain for advantage. How to sacrifice small forces to protect larger ones. Humans have been refining these principles for thousands of years. She brought up a display showing current battle statistics. The Draxians expected this war to last 3 days. We are now on day 12. They expected maybe 500 total casualties. They have lost over 30,000 warriors and 200 ships. Meanwhile, human reinforcements keep arriving from the outer colonies. Reinforcements? Counselor Thal asked, leaning forward with interest. Yoon nodded. Civilian volunteers mostly. People with basic military training volunteering to crew ships or fight on the ground. Our culture has a concept called total war, where the entire population contributes to the war effort. The Draxians are fighting our military, but they are actually at war with our entire species. War Master Krell received Yoon's report through intelligence channels and was furious. He called an emergency meeting with his commanders aboard his flagship. We were told humans were weak traitors, he roared, his forearms gesturing angrily. We were told they would surrender quickly. Instead, they fight like madmen. They sacrifice ships like they cost nothing. They use tactics that violate every rule of civilized warfare. His chief military advisor, War Counselor Thren, studied the tactical displays carefully. Unlike Krell, Thren had actually researched human military history before the invasion. Now he was seeing his fears confirmed. War Master, I believe we misunderstood the humans fundamentally. They are not a warrior culture like ours. But that makes them more dangerous, not less. Explain, Krell demanded. Warrior cultures like ours follow codes, Thren said. We fight for honor and glory. We follow rules about acceptable tactics. But humans fight for survival. They have no honor codes in war, only the goal of winning. This makes them unpredictable and willing to try anything. Krell slammed one of his massive fists on the table. Then we will match their brutality. Order the complete destruction of the Mars colonies. No more ground invasion. We will bombard them from orbit until nothing remains. Good. Perhaps then the humans will understand the cost of defying the Draxian Empire. But before the order could be executed, new intelligence arrived. Human fleets were moving from the outer colonies toward Draxian space. Not just military ships, but armed civilian vessels by the thousands. They were not coming to defend Earth. They were preparing to attack the Draxian home system. Counselor Thal brought this information to an emergency council session. The chamber erupted in argument. Many species had never seen warfare conducted this way. The idea that humans would counterattack instead of just defending seemed insane. They cannot win against the full Draxian military, Counselor Vexler insisted. This is suicide. But Ambassador Ra, who had returned to the council station, stood and spoke calmly. You still do not understand. We are not trying to win. We are ensuring that attacking Earth costs more than anyone is willing to pay. If the Draxians destroy Mars, we will destroy their homeworld. If they kill our civilians, we will kill theirs. We will keep fighting until they have nothing left worth fighting for. Fleet Admiral Seok had been commanding the Outer Colony Defense Forces when the war started. His fleet consisted of 140 ships stationed in the territories beyond Mars, old vessels mostly, kept in service because humans could not afford to waste resources. Now those old ships were coming home, and they were not coming to defend. Seok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bison, watching the tactical displays. His fleet had taken 3 weeks to reach the Draxian home system. 3 weeks of preparation and planning. 3 weeks of watching casualty reports from Earth space grow longer each day. Now they had arrived, and Seok intended to make the Draxians understand their mistake. All ships battle formation. Target their orbital stations first, then military installations on the surface. Avoid civilian areas if possible, but do not hesitate if they use civilians as shields. His executive officer, a young commander named He, looked uncertain. Admiral, we are attacking their home world. This crosses every line the Galactic Council has established. Seok turned to face her. His expression was hard, aged by years of service and recent weeks of horror. The Council stood by and watched while Draxians killed 30,000 people on Luna. They did nothing when Mars was bombarded. They voted for neutrality, so we will be neutral to their concerns as well. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Draxian system. Alarms immediately began sounding on the homeworld. The Draxians had never been attacked in their own territory. Their defenses were designed to project power outward, not to protect what they considered safe space. Seok's fleet moved through the outer system like a blade, destroying defense platforms and communication satellites. The Draxian home defense. Fleet scrambled to respond, but they were disorganized and surprised. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly and then retreating before the enemy could mass their forces on the Draxian homeworld. Panic spread through the population. Citizens watched human ships appear on their viewing screens, weapons firing at orbital installations. This was not supposed to happen. The Draxian Empire was invincible. They were the ones who conquered others. War Counselor Thren had remained behind to coordinate the home defense while War Master Krell prosecuted the Earth invasion. Now Thren watched in growing horror as human tactics proved devastatingly effective. They were not trying to occupy territory. They were destroying infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, communication hubs, everything that made modern civilization function. Contact the Council, Thren ordered. Tell them the humans have gone mad. They must intervene. But when the message reached the Galactic Council chamber, the response surprised him. Counselor Thal, the reptilian diplomat who had always shown humans respect, replied personally, War Counselor Thren, the Council voted for neutrality when you attacked Earth. That neutrality applies both ways. You began this war believing humans were weak. Now you are learning the truth. The Council will not save you from the consequences of your arrogance. Lieutenant He piloted her fighter through the chaos of battle around the Draxian homeworld. Her ship was old, held together by repairs and spare parts. But she flew it with skill born of endless training. When a Draxian cruiser locked weapons on her position, she did not try to flee. Instead, she aimed directly at the cruiser and accelerated to maximum speed. Her fuel was nearly depleted and her weapons were empty. But her ship itself was a weapon if she used it correctly. The cruiser's point defense systems fired, hitting her fighter multiple times. Her shields failed, hull breaches appeared. But she kept accelerating. This is for Luna, she whispered into her communication system. Knowing no one would hear, the fighter impacted the cruiser's bridge at a significant fraction of light speed. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. The cruiser broke apart, secondary explosions running through its hull as systems failed catastrophically. Lieutenant He died instantly, but her sacrifice was recorded by dozens of other ships. The footage spread through the human fleet, then back to Earth, then throughout the galaxy. A young pilot, barely 25 years old, choosing to die rather than let an enemy ship survive. The Galactic Council watched this recording in silence. Counselor Vexter, who had mocked humans at the war's beginning, turned his compound eyes away. He could not understand what would drive someone to such an act. His species fought for territory and resources. They surrendered when losses became too great. The humans seemed incapable of surrender. On Earth, Premier Day addressed the population through every communication channel. He had been elected to lead during peacetime, to oversee trade and development. Instead, he was leading humanity through its first interstellar war. His words reached billions of humans across dozens of worlds. The Draxians believed we were weak because we chose peace. They saw our preference for trade and diplomacy as cowardice. They attacked our homes, killed our families, and expected us to surrender. They were wrong. He paused, looking directly into the camera. His face showed the strain of sleepless weeks, but his voice was steady. We did not want this war. We tried to avoid it. But now that it has begun, we will see it through to the end. The Draxians will not just lose this war. They will never threaten anyone again. We will ensure it. Not because we are cruel, but because we understand that half measures guarantee future conflict. When we finish this, the galaxy will understand one simple truth: never attack humanity. The cost is always more than anyone can afford. The message was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Many species responded with shock and horror at the brutality being promised. But others, species that bordered Draxian territory, felt something different: relief. The Draxian Empire had been a threat for centuries. Now someone was finally standing up to them. In Earth orbit, Admiral Tay prepared the home fleet for the final defense. Intelligence suggested the Draxians were pulling ships back from the invasion force to defend their homeworld. This meant Earth would face fewer enemies, but those enemies would be desperate and angry. All ships hold position. Let them come to us. We have home advantage now. Dr. Wu had survived the Luna Station attack and evacuated to Earth with his family. But he could not simply wait while others fought. He had spent weeks compiling his documentation of the war into a comprehensive record. Images of destruction, casualty lists, interviews with survivors. All of it carefully organized and preserved. He submitted his work to the Galactic Council, demanding they review it. Most council members ignored the submission. But a few, including Counselor Zix, actually examined the documentation. What they saw disturbed them deeply. The images showed the reality of war: bodies floating in space, children crying over dead parents, cities reduced to rubble, Draxian warriors executing prisoners, human soldiers doing the same. The brutal truth: that war was not glorious or honorable, but simply horrible for everyone involved. Zix brought the documentation to a council session and demanded members watch it. "You voted for neutrality," the Mytharian said, their colors shifting to show anger. "But neutrality in the face of aggression is the same as supporting the aggressor? We allowed this to happen. We are responsible for these deaths." Not all council members agreed. Some still believed the conflict would resolve itself, but others began to reconsider. The war had been ongoing for 5 weeks now. Casualty numbers had exceeded 100,000 on both sides. And neither side showed any sign of stopping. War Master Krell finally understood the situation. He stood in his command center, reviewing reports that all confirmed the same thing. The invasion of Earth had failed. Not because humans had superior weapons or numbers, but because they simply refused to stop fighting. Every planet his forces occupied required a garrison. Every system they controlled was subject to guerrilla attacks. The humans were bleeding his empire slowly, death by 1,000 cuts, and now his homeworld was under attack. His people, who had never known fear, were panicking. They demanded he return with the fleet to protect them. But if he withdrew from Earth space, the humans would declare victory. The entire galaxy would see the mighty Draxian Empire defeated by a species they considered weak. He contacted War Counselor Thren directly. "What are our options?" Thren's response was quiet and filled with something Krell had never heard from his advisor before: fear. "We have 2 options. Continue fighting until both our species are destroyed, or seek peace terms. Peace? Krell roared. The Draxian Empire does not surrender. We already have War Master, we just have not admitted it yet. The humans will not stop. They have made that clear. If we continue, they will destroy our home world. If we withdraw, they will pursue us. The only option that allows our species to survive is negotiation. Krell wanted to refuse. His pride, his honor, everything he believed and demanded, he continued fighting. But he was also a practical warrior. He understood mathematics. At current casualty rates, the Draxian Empire would be militarily broken within 3 months. The humans would lose more people, but they seemed willing to accept any cost. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Ra received a message that made her close her eyes in relief. The Draxians were requesting peace talks. Not surrender, they would not use that word. But they wanted negotiations to end the fighting. 6 months after the first Draxian ship attacked Luna Station, the war finally ended. Not with a grand battle or heroic last stand, but with signatures on a treaty document in the Galactic Council chamber. War Master Krell had been removed from command, disgraced by his failure. War Counselor Thren signed the treaty on behalf of what remained of the Draxian Empire. The casualty numbers were displayed on every screen in the chamber. 2,400,000 Draxians dead. 780,000 humans dead. Those numbers would be remembered for generations. Ambassador Ra sat across from Thren at the signing table. She looked older now, her hair showing gray that had not been there before the war. Behind her stood Commander Hyan, also aged by the conflict. On the other side, Thren's forearms trembled slightly as he prepared to sign documents that would change his species forever. The terms are harsh, Thren said quietly, stating what everyone knew. Yes, Ra agreed. They are meant to be. Your empire attacked us without provocation. You killed our civilians. You believed we were weak and would not fight back. The galaxy needs to understand the price of such miscalculation. The treaty terms were indeed harsh. The Draxian Empire would be dissolved. Its territory divided into independent systems under Galactic Council supervision. The military fleet would be reduced to 1/10 its former size. Reparations would be paid to human families who lost members in the war. And for 50 years, human military forces would maintain bases in Draxian space to ensure compliance. Most controversially, human representatives would oversee the new Draxian governments during the transition period. Magistrate Sun had been appointed to this role, a stern woman who had lost her son in the Mars bombardment. She would not be a gentle administrator. General Bin would command the occupation forces. He was a practical soldier who understood both the need for security and the importance of eventually allowing the Draxians to govern themselves. But first, they needed to understand that aggression had consequences. As the treaty was signed, Counselor Zix addressed the full council. Their crystalline bodies shifted through colors that indicated sadness and determination. This war should never have happened. We, the Galactic Council, failed in our most basic duty. We allowed a strong species to attack a weaker one without consequence. We voted for neutrality when we should have voted for justice. The humans were forced to fight alone, and both sides paid a terrible price. Zix displayed Dr. Wu's documentation on the main screens. Images of destruction. Lists of the dead. Recordings of battles where soldiers on both sides died for no good reason except pride and miscommunication. We must change how this council operates. Ambassador Ra has proposed new rules, and I support them fully. From this day forward, any species that attacks another member without clear provocation will face immediate collective response from all Council military forces. We will no longer hide behind neutrality while innocent people die. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. Only 3 species voted against it, and 2 of those reversed their votes after seeing the images from Dr. Wu's documentation. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Purchased with nearly 3 million lives, Admiral Tay retired from military service the day after the treaty was signed. He was awarded every honor humanity could give him, but he refused public celebrations. Too many people had died under his command. He moved to a quiet house near the ocean on Earth and tried to forget the sight of ships burning in the darkness of space. But he could not forget. None of them could. The war was over, but its effects would last for generations. On Luna, reconstruction had begun. The destroyed sections were being rebuilt. Families were moving back to the underground cities. Dr. Wu returned to his laboratory and tried to resume his research on asteroid composition. But everything felt different now. The rock samples seemed less important than they once had. He had become something unexpected during the war. A documentarian of horror. His work had been submitted to the Galactic Council and had influenced their decision to change their policies. Universities throughout human space wanted him to speak about his experiences. He declined most invitations, but sometimes he agreed, believing people needed to understand what war truly meant. "We study wars so carefully," he told one audience of students. "We document every battle and analyze every decision. Do you know why? Because we hope that if we truly understand how terrible war is, we might avoid the next one. We might find another way to solve our problems." A student asked him if the war had been worth it. Dr. Wu was quiet for a long moment before answering. "We did not choose this war. It was forced upon us. So the question is not whether it was worth it, but whether we could have avoided it. And the answer is yes. If the Galactic Council had enforced their own laws, the Draxians would never have attacked. Thousands of people would still be alive. The war's value is not in what we gained, but in the lesson we taught. Never again will the Council ignore aggression. That is the only worthwhile thing to come from all that death." In the occupied Draxian territories, General Bin established military governance that was strict but fair. He understood the Draxians were angry and humiliated. They had lost their empire and their pride. Some wanted to fight back against the human occupiers. But Bin made it clear that any resistance would be met with overwhelming force. At the same time, he ensured that Draxian civilians had food, medicine, and basic services. He prosecuted human soldiers who mistreated prisoners or civilians. He wanted the Draxians to understand that humans were not conquerors seeking revenge, but reluctant occupiers ensuring future peace. Magistrate Sun took a different approach. She oversaw the formation of new Draxian governments and was absolutely ruthless about removing anyone with connections to the old military leadership. She wanted a complete break from the Empire's aggressive past. "You will learn to govern yourselves properly," she told the first Draxian Council of the new era. "You will learn that strength is not measured in ships and weapons, but in how you protect your people and cooperate with neighbors, or you will remain under human supervision indefinitely. The choice is yours." Some Draxians hated her. Others grudgingly respected her harsh fairness. But all of them understood she was serious. Commander Hyen finally spoke at a Galactic Council session 6 months after the war ended. He had been silent for so long that many species had forgotten he was there. Now he stood and addressed the assembled representatives. "Before the war, I tried to warn you. I told you about human history and how we respond to existential threats. You did not listen. You laughed. You thought our preference for peace meant we could not fight. You were wrong, and millions died because of that mistake." He paused, looking around at the various alien species. "But I also want you to understand something important. We did not enjoy this war. We did not celebrate our victories. Every ship we destroyed, every Draxian soldier we killed, we mourned. Because we understand something that warrior cultures often do not. Your enemy is just like you. They have families. They have hopes. They feel pain and fear. When you kill them, you are ending a life that matters to someone." His voice became harder. "But knowing this does not stop us from fighting when we must. It makes us more dangerous, not less, because we fight without illusions. We understand exactly what we are doing, and we do it anyway because survival requires it. Remember that. The next time someone proposes attacking humanity, remember what happened to the Draxians. And ask yourself if any goal is worth that price." He sat down. The council chamber was completely silent. Councillor Thal stood slowly. "The humans have taught us all a difficult lesson. I hope we have the wisdom to learn it. 5 years after the war ended, the occupation of Draxian territory was scheduled to end. The new governments had proven stable. The military was reduced and focused on defense rather than conquest. Reparations had been paid. General Bin prepared to withdraw his forces on the last day of occupation. He met with a group of young Draxians who had been children when the war started. They had grown up under human supervision. Now they would inherit a very different empire than their parents had known. "Do you hate us?" one of them asked bluntly. General Bin considered the question carefully. "No, we never hated you. Hate is what leads to wars like the one we fought. We fought because we had to, not because we wanted to. Now we leave because the job is done. Your species has learned what ours learned long ago. That strength without wisdom leads to destruction. That conquest is temporary, but cooperation is permanent. That the best way to ensure peace is to make war so terrible that everyone seeks alternatives." He prepared to leave, then turned back one last time. In human history, we have a saying: "Those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it." Your species has paid a terrible price for your education. Do not waste it. The occupation ended quietly. Human forces withdrew from Draxian space. The new governments took full control. Some humans worried the Draxians would rebuild their military and seek revenge. But most understood that the war had fundamentally changed both species. 10 years after the war, Ambassador Ra retired from diplomatic service. She had negotiated treaties with a dozen species and had become one of the most respected voices in the Galactic Council. Her final speech was short and simple.